media projects conception as a very casual thing to happen. As soon as the baby is born, we leave the baby on the mother's chest and we allow the baby to practice what is called as the breast crawl. Ultrasound scans, Shweta, they sort of become a traumatic experience for the baby. If the baby is given formula milk without a mother's consent, then it's a legal issue. A lot of mothers have this notion that अगर C-section से हुआ है तो मेरे को पहला 3 दिन दूध नहीं आने वाला है.
There's no education about this.
Yeah, so you see these, commercials where a mother should be so happy because the baby has come, but she may not be.
Hi, I'm Shweta, registered dietitian and sports nutritionist, and welcome to Mind Your Fitness, the podcast where we separate nutrition facts from fiction. I'm excited to welcome Pooja Singhania, who's a nutritionist, registered dietitian, and the founder of Nourish 1000 Days. Welcome, Pooja, to the podcast.
Thank you, Shweta. I'm so happy to be here.
I'm going to dive directly into our first segment, which is the preconception period. When couples come to my clinic when they're planning a baby, I keep emphasizing on the window that they need to focus on when they start planning their baby. Usually they've already come by the time the woman is conceived. But I always take this opportunity to counsel couples about the joint effort that goes in almost 6 months before you plan a baby because of two main reasons. One is that there is a 90 to 120 day window, as you already know, where a lot of changes occur. For example, there is a 75-day assembly line for a man's sperm production, and this is such an important window because his lifestyle and whatever he does at this point will affect the sperm quality and the kind of genetic material that he will pass on to his child. And for a woman, it also talks about those last few important months of the egg's 300-day maturation. So this is also a vulnerable period where her lifestyle will directly affect the egg quality. So what is your take on how the couples should, jointly work and prepare during this period?
Yeah, so preconception is actually the most important phase according to me. It's like if we take the analogy of growing a plant, okay, so if you had to prepare the soil to make it fertile, then it will go through a few steps that initially what we do is we plow the land, then we are sort of leveling the land, and then finally we are manuring it. Okay, so we all know that to grow a good plant, the soil has to be well prepared. So it's just like that, you may think of the mother's womb as the land or the soil and the father's sperm as the seed you're going to sow, okay? So the quality of both is extremely important. So the sperm, of course, the seed, you try to look for a good quality one, and especially, sometimes you eat a nice fruit or you eat a good tomato, then you feel like, oh, let me preserve this seed. What if I try to grow this?
Right.
I will get a really nice ripe tomato. So same way, when you're looking at the sperm quality, as you said, many factors affect the quality of that seed. And I also like to think of it that the smallest of lifestyle factors, like if the father is smoking or he's exposed to a lot of stress, or we know for now the lifestyle that we have, sedentary, sitting with a laptop on your lap, and then all that heat generated, all that is affecting the sperm quality drastically. And then coming to the soil, now you prepare the soil in a way that you ensure that there are enough of nutrients, but then it's also like, so when do we start this is almost like about 3 to 6 months in advance, and I would say 3 months is a good period that actually is needed for preparation. So if we go through those phases of the plowing and leveling and the manuring, so it's like we would say the first stage is weeding off, like you remove all the things from your life which are toxic, right? for the soil. Then second is leveling. So you put things in place like, taking care of your sleep, your stress, overall lifestyle, like are you able to balance things. And then finally is the manuring, that what we say, like the right kind of nutrition that is required for when the seed comes, it should be able to grow and sprout. So then that's the final stage, manuring, which we feel like, okay, nutrition is the most important part, but then the steps before that are equally important.
So, yeah, great points. Actually, I think the onus has always been on the woman's body, and the woman has to prepare herself. Yeah, that's right. I mean, even women who have to lose weight before their pregnancy, I always encourage a 6-month period, because there's enough window to do all those necessary changes that you rightly said are required to, develop that fertile land. But because men develop their or produce sperm on a more frequent basis, which is apparently the 75-day period, whatever they do directly affects the sperm quality in a very short period.
Correct.
Whereas a woman is already born with a fixed number of eggs. In fact, we also know about this ovarian intergenerational continuity, right? So, for example, the grandmother's womb affects her grandchild.
Correct.
Because the egg that created you was already in your grandmother's womb.
True.
A woman is born with her eggs when she's, the eggs are developed when she is in her mother's womb. So I think that when we talk about fetal programming, when we're talking about good genetic material being passed on, we're talking about the developmental origins of health and disease. I think couples should take this responsibility jointly and understand that it's joint work that's going to help develop a very healthy baby, not just in terms of a pregnancy outcome, but also as a future healthy adult. Okay, so now we've discussed about the preconception and the prep phase. Let's talk about the main act, right? The main part, which is the conception phase, where actually, that seed is actually becoming a plant. What is your take on the environment?
So again, conception, as we said, is an act of consciousness. So people, the media projects conception as a very casual thing to happen, but in ancient Indian text, it's a very deep science as to when, where, and how the conception should take place. So there are, in fact, a list of do's and don'ts, I would say, that you should keep in mind while you're going into the act of conception. It's also that we understand that there would be the right kind of preparation for the female and the male. So often, according to Indian scriptures, it's about being clean in your body, but being clean in your mind and your thoughts also, because you're trying to again invite a soul into your life, and that soul has to be a divine one, right? Like we all want to give birth to a child who is very well mannered, is a good human being more than anything else, right? So for that, the entire thought process during the act is going to make a difference. Once the seed is sown, it is a progression, or it's a linear growth where there is no chance to come back, right? So we call this first 1,000 days as a critical window of opportunity. Okay, so critical, why? Because the damage once done is irreversible, and a window of opportunity because for your entire life, your foundation for your physical, cognitive, emotional health is laid in this first 1,000 days. Okay, so that is why it makes it a window of opportunity. Whatever you want to do, you do it now, and whatever steps you take now are going to build the strong foundation for that tree to grow and flourish.
So this is such an interesting point actually that you brought up. I've never really thought about it from a very spiritual sense, because we go so medical and technical and so physical about the whole prep, but and the conception phase. But great points, Pooja. I also want to talk about IVF here,
Right.
because this is exactly what I see in the clinic day in and day out. Right, I have couples coming in with actually failed attempts and then wanting to give it a shot. And this is exactly what I talk about the prep phase, what we've just discussed, that this should have probably happened before that IVF planning occurred, right? But what happens most of the times is, women, because of their age concerns, they want to just get into the process, they want to hurry things up. And sometimes it doesn't work out, and there are multiple attempts, which is also so, overwhelming for the woman in terms of her body and mind. And then there's a failure. Then again, that is kind of, very demoralizing. Then you're taking three steps back and saying, hey, now I want to I think I should put this on hold and then focus on my prep. So that is the time when I usually get people in the clinic and I'm like counseling them about the prep phase. But like you said, by the time it's not a reversible process and then you're restarting this whole thing. In terms of IVF, the only thing that I would like to add is that this is exactly why I say that those 6 months are so important, and you would have a better outcome if you're planning an IVF. And I've had a case study actually where the woman, she had 3 failed attempts with her IVF, and then she decided that she's just going to focus on her body and get in shape and get on a plan. And then when she started her first month of nutrition with me, she conceived naturally.
Yeah, exactly. So that's what, the reflection should be on why we are not able to conceive. When nature doesn't allow you to conceive, it's important to step back and reflect on what we are doing wrong. Okay. I've had cases where, eliminating plastic from their, daily life has made so much difference in their fertility. Or just as you said, losing some weight has helped to create the right environment for the implantation to happen.
So, Pooja, you mentioned some time ago about the concept of 1,000 days.
Yes.
That's pretty interesting. Can you explain what that means?
Correct. So the first 1000 days begin at conception and they continue till the child is 2 years of age. Okay. So conception is like, so often people think that my first day of life is my birthday, but
Right.
that's not your first day. You were living, breathing even before that inside the mother's womb.
Right.
So the first day of life is actually the day that zygote was formed, right?
Right.
So that's day 0. Then we know that pregnancy is about 9 months. So we calculate that roughly as about 270 days. Then the first year of life after we are born, that is 365 days. So 270, 365, and then the second year of life, that is another 365 days. So when we add up this, the math is a perfect 1000. Okay. So that's why conception to 2 years is the first 1000 days of life.
The most crucial part.
It's the most critical window. Okay. So it's like a train. If you have missed that train of the first 1000 days, there's no scope of catching it back, because so at the end of the first 1000 days, that is when the child is about 2 years old, we know that the child has almost reached half its potential height.
That's
Okay?
right, yeah.
है ना, proportionately we
Right.
say almost आप आधा height अपना achieve कर चुके हो. और फिर हम कहते हैं कि also the brain size. Okay, so now there are very interesting studies which were done, that you compare the brain of 2-3-year-old child. There were brain scans done, and they saw that at both the children, despite being 3 years old, one had a brain which was really small in size and with very wide fluid cavities. Okay, the
Okay.
cavities are really huge. That means that the gray matter is really
Less
less
developed.
Okay, whereas another child who received good nutrition has a well developed brain with good gray matter and very small fluid cavity. Okay,
Right.
so less empty space means more gray matter, right? Now the only differentiating factor between these two children is the role of nutrition. Okay?
That's true.
And that makes or breaks. But now what is really disheartening, Shweta, then is that once, because the brain development is complete almost 90% by the time the child is 3 years old, if the potential is not achieved, after 3 years you have a scope of increasing only up to 10%.
Smaller window.
Yeah. So then, but then that 90%, if it's gone, then now this child is going to grow up with a stunted brain.
So that's what we talk about, the developmental origins of health and disease. And you also brought up an important topic of cognitive development. And there's so much research talking about, if a woman has gestational diabetes, she can have a child who ends up with mood disorders in adulthood. We know that gestational diabetes creates an environment where the child can become diabetic in the future. So I don't think that there's enough emphasis and awareness about how during pregnancy the environment or the woman's body will affect fetal programming, and then it's the final outcome which cannot be changed, which we talk about epigenetics these days.
Exactly. And so, as you're saying, that if the womb is an environment where there is high blood sugars, then the child is going to produce more insulin.
That's
okay?
right.
So, that more insulin we know is fat storage,
Correct.
right? More insulin is equal to fat storage. Now, then you are going to have a big baby, right? What we call as
Macrosome.
macrosomia. So this baby is hard to deliver. So
Right.
you are going to get into more complications later on.
True.
And after the baby has come out of the womb, baby is also likely to have high insulin levels still, considering that environment was like that.
Right.
Okay. So there was this beautiful study by, so we call Indians the thin fat Indian phenotype,
Correct.
right? So Dr. David Barker did a lot of study in regarding this fetal origins of health and disease, right?
You're talking about the Barker hypothesis.
Yeah, yeah. So when adult diabetics were studied, and they, retrospectively they went back to understand what was their birth weight.
Right.
They found that they were low birth weight babies. Okay, means inside the uterus the environment was of starvation.
Right.
Kind of like, also because there is a beautiful movie on this also, Sakre Peksha God, made by Dr. Yajnik from Pune.
Okay.
So there at their lab they did several years of research on this, again uterine environment. So they realized that women were eating less during pregnancy, thinking that delivery would become a problem if I had a
Gain.
big baby. Yeah,
Right.
or the baby became really big.
Okay.
So then they were sort of having a diet which was very restricted and sort of a deprivation kind of a diet. Now outside the womb, because this baby was low birth weight, Shweta, they are looking at increasing the weight, because you now want this child to run the same race as all other babies.
The catch-up phase.
Yeah. So like we'll start tracking them on the growth chart. अच्छा,
Right.
इतने टाइम पे इतना वजन हो जाना चाहिए था. Okay, 500 ग्राम
Right.
एक महीने में एक तो then they will be running the race like all other babies. But
Right.
your start was at a lower weight. So
Right.
now your race should have been different. You should run your own race, but then you are asked to compete with all other kids. And of course, WHO standards are now considered as our standards as well. But Indian babies do, we all know that Indian babies do lag, right? Like
Right.
they are not able to catch up to that 50th percentile.
So yeah, and we should talk about pregnancy nutrition a little bit over here, because as you said, there's no awareness, right? The guidelines are okay. I'm not going to eat too much because I'm going to gain too much weight, or I'm going to eat whatever I want because I have to feed two bodies. So I think it's completely polarized, the opinions on nutrition in pregnancy. Well, it doesn't work like that. There has to be a proper balance of your carbohydrates, protein, and fat, and that all depends on your pre-pregnancy weight and health condition. So, for example, if you had a history of gestational diabetes in the past, or you have been overweight, obviously I'm going to control the carbohydrates a little bit, because I don't want you to have gestational diabetes,
True.
through the second pregnancy or through this pregnancy. So I feel that even the awareness of how the nutrient composition and the amount of calories that we have to give a pregnant woman in the first trimester, second trimester, and third trimester, checking the rate of weight gain on a weekly basis, on a trimester basis, and then say, yes, we are on track with this diet plan. And with that, actually, I want to talk about how do we, kind of analyze that the pregnancy is progressing,
progressing.
because we're talking about nutrition, propelling that growth. But how can we tell through scans, or what do we monitor?
See, pregnancy is a stage of the life cycle, like I said, it is not a disease, okay? But so therefore, it cannot be taken as a something that requires a treatment,
Constant
but
monitoring.
but something that requires more commitment, right?
Right.
So here is where you look at the fact that the scans are done to keep seeing how the baby's heartbeat is, whether the baby's weight gain. So yes, you need to have
Monitor milestones.
monitor, and more so we want the baby to gain weight, right? So
Correct.
again, often we see that in pregnancy Indian women are gaining a lot of weight, okay, in fact more than the standards, but
Right.
that weight is not of the baby, so it's
Right.
not like the baby. So a really heavy mother who has gained almost 15 kgs through pregnancy might even give birth to a child who's 2.5 kgs. So that means the nutrition was not reaching the baby.
Correct.
So that's the most important parameter. I keep asking my mothers, like, please know what is the fetus's weight right now, and that's it. Other than that, there are again, coming to a little bit of a spiritual aspect, that every mother is able to gauge how the baby is doing. You have to communicate with your baby every day, okay?
Wow.
So there are instances of the mother understanding intuitively that something is wrong with my baby today, not responding, or I feel like the kicks are not as much as they used to be. So then she is consciously able to tell that, okay, I think we need a check, or we need to step back. And often what helps is talking to your baby, because we have to understand this baby already exists, it's living,
Right.
The sense of touch comes by the time the baby is just 8 weeks. So the mother starts touching her womb, and the child is able to understand what she's trying to communicate.
Wow, that's beautiful.
Yeah. So these, like intuitively thinking of what is my body telling me is what is more important than going for scans. So this ultrasound scans, Shweta, they sort of become a traumatic experience for the baby,
Oh, is
because
it?
yes, because this sound travels through water.
Right, we have to understand the method,
Physics,
right, of
Yeah,
testing.
yeah. So even if sound has to travel through air, it will not be as magnified as when it is traveling through water. So while it is also a beautiful thing about nature that the mother can communicate with the baby, and her heartbeat, her voice,
It's
her
also
sounds,
sound.
yeah, is beautifully received by the baby. But that ultrasound becomes a very, very loud sound, which can become a
Disturbing
little
sound.
disturbing. Exactly, disturbing for the baby. So it's like, when you're baking a bread in the oven, you just don't keep, checking it every minute, right? So 9 months, wait for things to unfold, and just have some trust in nature, of how things will come out to be.
Also, Pooja, what's your take on exercise during pregnancy? Because this is, I think, another area which is so untapped and there's such low awareness. I mean, yeah, there are, women who have a little awareness and then they enroll for maybe classes, or they've been exercising before pregnancy. But then there's also a good amount of women I know who are scared of exercising during pregnancy.
Especially if it's IVF or something.
Correct, because you feel it's high risk.
Right.
But when we have cases of pregnancy at the clinic, we definitely encourage that they take a check from their gynac whether they are cleared to exercise, and then they are definitely asked to consult our in-house prenatal exercise consultants.
Consultant. Exactly.
And not just that, and I think what people understand about exercise during pregnancy is to manage their own weight. It's not that. We're again coming back to fetal programming, where there are studies which show that motor development, like you said, you spoke about the brain scans, the motor development of the baby is happening in the womb, and that is facilitated by the mother's movement and exercise.
Absolutely. So exactly, if we think of it as basic logic, when you're exercising, more oxygen goes into your
Sure,
body, Shweta,
circulation.
right?
Yeah.
So more oxygen means more oxygen reaching the womb, and as you mentioned rightly, the brain requires a lot of oxygen,
Correct.
right? So if more oxygen is reaching the baby's brain, naturally their cognitive development is better.
Right.
So women who have been exercising throughout pregnancy give birth to babies who have better learning abilities, better
That's right.
cognition. They do so much better at grasping concepts at school. Okay, so that man. But also one more thing here, just as you said, with IVF pregnancies, initial period is bed rest, right?
True.
So we also, wait for the mother to get a clearance from the gynac, that as soon as the gynac says, yes, you are ready to start
Take it forward.
moving, it's important to just start moving, like not, even if not really exercise, but definitely start moving more, walk more, or do some form of physical activity.
So another thing that I always talk about the role of exercise is that it strengthens the mother's body for the process, the birthing
Yeah,
process.
correct.
And a lot of women complain about physical aches and pains once the baby is born. In fact, I always tell my mothers that you have to have the strength to carry your child.
Absolutely.
So do you have the basic strength? Will you be able to carry a 1 or 2 year old child? Because I think that's the amount of years that a baby would have to be picked up
Carried.
while they're asleep, for example, sometimes. So
Absolutely. So that pelvic muscle, that
Right.
muscle needs a strength to carry, and that is where even the protein in the diet makes a lot of difference, right?
So exercise is not about burning calories and maintaining your weight. It's a whole lot of other things during
Yes.
pregnancy as well. So Pooja, we've discussed that birthing is just not about getting the baby out, right? What is your take on those first few hours? How do they influence the bonding process and the baby's future emotional health?
Yes, very important again. So, as you mentioned, that birthing is like a first impression for the baby, right? So, the baby is living inside the mother's womb for 9 months in a dark environment, which seems really cozy, very protected, and safe. And suddenly you are out into this world where in the operation theater there are bright lights, there's a lot
Right.
of sound of machines, something going beep 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 beep, and it's really loud. Yeah, and then there are strangers around you, okay, strange faces which you're not familiar with. So that actually is a very long lasting impression on the baby, right?
Right.
So a sense of security would come if soon after the birth baby is left on the mother's chest itself. Okay, and again, while couples plan so much about कौन सा कॉट लाना है, कौन से ब्रांड का
कौन सा colour होना चाहिए.
हाँ, like shampoo कौन सा लाना है, how I'm doing up the room. But trust me, the entire process of labor and childbirth and the first 3 days, which actually, unfortunately, the baby and the mother are spending in the hospital environment, which is not again a familiar environment, not a very cozy environment, that is actually shaping the it's like a imprinting that happens on the baby's mind in the first few days, and that should be very well planned.
Okay.
So again, going back to some of our traditional spiritual practices, there would be whispering of a nice mantra into the baby's ear as soon as they're born.
Right.
Who is the the grandmother comes, she tries to caress the baby. Who is going to talk to the baby first? Everything should be planned, from the first sound to the first sight to the first touch to the baby, right? A stranger touching the baby versus coming back to the mother's chest, that's
Right.
so important. And they say that usually these impressions last for a lifetime, and imagine if at all the baby has to go into the NICU, then it's even more devastating, right?
So it's the whole toxic stress environment versus a
Absolutely.
soothing and comforting environment.
And we thought that coming into institutions and delivering babies was becoming a safer practice,
Right.
That it meant more hygiene, but
Sure.
it also means a
Backfired.
lot of intervention which is unnecessary. It also means separation between a baby and a mother, which doesn't happen in nature.
That's
right?
true.
In nature, the the baby, especially the mother would go in a secluded place to, birth her new young one.
right.
And there is no nurse, there is no doctor. In fact, least people are required, because it's just an equation between the baby and the mother.
True.
So if we allow that, that is what is going to help the baby to have a good emotional, because billions of neurons are firing at that time, right? So
right.
if you give the right emotional environment, then this is going to shape the child with a good emotional quotient.
So, Pooja, tell us something about the golden hour, right? The skin to skin contact. What happens during that process?
Yeah. So as I was saying, as soon as the baby is born, we leave the baby on the mother's chest, and we allow the baby to practice what is called as the breast crawl.
Okay.
So in nature, all the animals know how to seek their source of food, right? Nobody tells a kitten where to go and start sucking, right?
Correct.
Nobody tells a calf where to go. So like that, humans, being the most evolved and
Species.
intelligent species, we have the natural instincts to find where our food is. Now think of it this way also, Shweta, that if we don't exercise our instinctive abilities to find food in the first hour of our life, then in future also we will never be able to use our instincts, right?
True.
So don't we struggle with that when it comes to diets, like aren't you able to stop when you should stop?
That's right, yeah.
है ना, हम अपने signals ही नहीं समझते, हम समझते नहीं है कि okay, I should have perceived the food का appearance ऐसा है, उसका sound ऐसा, I should have
Coming
been,
back to programming here.
yeah, coming back to programming, coming back to mindfulness. And so now if this baby is left on the mother's chest, the baby in 15 to 30 minutes is going to be able to use its own reflexes and reach the mother's breast and start sucking. Okay, and for that it uses its sense of sight, taste, smell, touch. It uses its muscles, like it uses its shoulder and hip muscles, which are very well developed even at birth, to be
Right.
able to crawl and reach the mother's breast. Okay, so that's called breast crawl, and that should be done with every baby within 1 hour, and that
Okay.
is what is called the early initiation, right? And the
right.
golden period, because if you lose this first hour, then you are likely to have a baby who's probably not as alert, who has had a feed from
Right,
outside,
right.
and is not interested in taking mother's milk at
Right.
all, and finally not used their instinctive abilities which were present right at birth.
Right, so it's such a critical window, that first hour or that golden hour that you mentioned. What happens during a C-section, Pooja? Because obviously there is separation at that point. What happens to the initiation, the breast crawl, and does it become a problem going forward?
Correct. So we are seeing that C-section rates are increasing, right,
Right.
Shweta? And the latest NFHS 6 data shows that, firstly, institutionalized births are increasing to 90%. Means, okay, we think that at least now the birthing is happening in a hygienic environment. But then the C-section is also coming up to 50% in private hospitals. Means, in a way, you can think that every 1 in 2 mothers are going
Births.
to be delivering through C-section. Now, imagine the process of coming out through the mother's vagina. You
Right.
are acquiring so many microorganisms,
True.
and you are also making this big effort to find your way out into the world.
Right.
It's like truly that experience of coming into this world for the baby and for the mother also, to birth a child. You cannot just cut open and bring out the baby and say, okay, now this is it. So, like I take the example of a balloon. Now, if you have blown a full balloon, so if the belly is like a balloon, one is you are going to put a knife and cut the balloon. So imagine what's the state of the balloon versus you allowed it to deflate, and that's how
Nice.
the vaginal birth
Right,
is, right?
right.
So there's so much difference in the child's microbiome, which we now know the gut is a second brain,
Right.
right? So the effect on the microbiome, the effect on learning how I have to make my way into this world, the way of also for the mother to go through that pain to become a mother, to feel like, yes, I have delivered. Yeah, so all those play a role, and that's how this it becomes. Now, so if 1 in 2 C-section births are happening, that means you are depriving the child of the healthy microbiome. It also becomes a barrier to breastfeeding, Shweta.
Okay.
Because with C-section, firstly, lot of mothers have this notion that अगर सी सेक्शन से हुआ है तो मेरे को पहला 3 दिन दूध नहीं आने वाला है. They
Okay.
feel like there's no milk
So
coming.
there's no education about this.
Yeah, there is still a huge misconception around this, that C-section birth means no milk in the first 3 days. So then what is given is
Formula.
then, yeah. So now of course, we know that there's a Consumer Protection Act,
Right.
that if the baby is given formula milk without a mother's
mother's
consent,
consent.
then it's a legal issue, right?
Right.
It's not right to most mothers don't know that formula.
Yeah, so I
has
think this is something that needs to be discussed with the gynecologist, right, during the whole process. But how will the woman discuss when she has no awareness or education on the topic?
Exactly. So in Western countries, you make what is called as a birth plan. Okay?
Right.
So you make it very clear that what do I want in each step.
Stepwise.
Yeah. Whether in my labor, do I want a epidural or not? Who is
Right.
going to be present with me? Who is going to first hold the baby? Where the baby will be placed right after birth? And of course, what goes into my baby's body is totally my decision. So that birth plan is missing in India. So that
Unfortunate.
becomes a issue.
So that brings us to the main segment, which is breastfeeding. Obviously, it's important that the mother maintains her nutrition through this period, just like she did during pregnancy. But I feel more than that, there has to be a little awareness about the environment, right? Because again, there's a bonding phase that's happening here. And a lot of women are either in a rush to resume work or to lose weight.
That is so
So, what is your take on the environment and the support that women should receive during this period?
So while the mother is going to feed the baby, it's not just an act of physically making milk, but
Right.
the mother's emotions play such an important role. So we know there are 2 hormones that are involved in
Correct.
breastfeeding, that is oxytocin and
and
prolactin. So we take the prolactin as a chef, okay, the one who's making the milk in the breast
Right.
and keeping it ready. And this oxytocin is like the waiter.
Release.
Yeah, so supply. When the milk is ready, this oxytocin is going to bring it out to the consumer, who's the baby, right? So now this prolactin works efficiently as a chef, that whenever there is no milk in the breast, that means no food in the kitchen,
Right.
this chef is going to be at work and going to keep producing more and more food. But this oxytocin, the waiter, Shweta, is a little moody kind of a hormone, okay?
Moody is the word.
Yeah, oxytocin is like moody, okay?
That brings us to stress.
Exactly. So if the mother is feeling calm, comfortable, she's painless, she's confident, then only this oxytocin kicks in and allows the milk to flow. So when we say, Shweta, that mother didn't have enough milk, it's not because prolactin didn't make milk. There was enough milk, but there wasn't enough love to bring that milk
So
out.
there's a delivery problem, not a supply problem.
Exactly. The problem is with the delivery. So here's where, the mother's emotions play such an important role. And then we say it takes a village to raise a child.
True that.
Yeah. Because it's not just, okay, so the mother will need some help from her spouse.
Right.
She will need some help from the family. Somebody will take care of cooking. Somebody will take care of chores. Somebody has to just keep encouraging her. Whatever you're doing is right. You
Right.
have enough milk. You will be able to nourish your baby. Don't worry about it. So that is where, this entire breastfeeding week, the entire efforts, we say we are building a warm chain support. Means every person who's linked to the mother and baby has to give the warmth to them so that they're able to do this.
So, what happens if it's not successful, Pooja? Do we have resources like lactation consultants? Do we have like breast milk banks? What about galactogogues? What is your take on these things?
Exactly. So now, when this fails, or sort of we think that it's not, the breastfeeding is not happening effectively.
Right.
The first thing to reflect is on the mother's mental health. right? What is
Okay.
going wrong really? And we know there's postpartum depression, na Shweta?
Yes.
Like we know almost 1 in 5 women suffer from
Right.
it,
I
but
believe it's about 22% in India.
yeah, so and our society doesn't talk about it as much as it should be. Okay, but then
Probably even the woman is not aware about it
yeah,
sometimes because she doesn't know what's happening.
correct. So you see these, commercials where a mother should be so happy because the baby has come, but she may not be, and it's totally normal. We have to accept that she's not finding that baby the true bundle of joy that she
Like we say, with the baby, the mother is born.
born exactly, and then she may be very overwhelmed, to be able to express joy in that state. Okay, so coming to this, that okay, so people think that acha, दूध नहीं आ रहा है तो उसको ये खिलाओ वो खिलाओ, but that's not the first
Right.
resort. It's
Right.
not the treatment. Reflect on the mother's mental health and see why oxytocin is not coming out, right? Why there's no flow of the milk because of any stress situation, anxiety, pain that she's going through. So we have to take a look at that. So galactogogues are secondary. So like I mentioned, prolactin is the hormone which produces milk.
Right.
So galactogogues have an impact on prolactin.
Okay.
And that is also only for the first few days when prolactin has to increase in a linear way.
Right.
So वहाँ पे ही वो galactogogues काम करते हैं.
Right.
उसके बाद हाँ, कुछ mothers में we would say that, I would say, it just give them a sense of satisfaction that okay, I'm having this for my milk production, and it somewhere soothes them or has
Psychologically
a
works.
placebo kind of an
Right.
effect on them. Although but science backs only a few things as true galactogogues,
Right.
But again, they will work on prolactin, but
Which
not
are
on
those?
oxytocin. So like methi seeds are scientifically proven
Okay.
to improve. The herb shatavari,
Right.
which is asparagus actually, that
Right.
also is known to promote. But other than that, whatever the mothers may have, like a jeera pani, sauf ka pani, I think they're more like herbs which help to calm her or keep her body in a state of relaxation, and
Balance.
also the hydration is
Right.
taken care
Of
of
course.
because of these.
Right.
That helps.
What about resources like lactation consultants? Are there people who can help a woman, understand her body or help her facilitate this process better?
Yeah. So fortunately, because of the efforts of the Breastfeeding Promotion Network of India, BPNI, we have these, more and more education on becoming a IYCF consultant. That
Okay.
means infant and young child feeding counseling specialists are there who go on to become lactation counselors. So a lot of these corporate hospitals now have LCs attached to them,
Right.
wherein soon after birth the LC will be called in and she will be there
Right.
to guide the mother.
Right.
So we have to make sure that in the first 3 days breastfeeding is established and no mother leaves the hospital without bringing
Successful
the with a proper breastfeeding baby. No discharge on formula milk should be done.
Right.
That is what the LC's role here is. And a lot of for example, LCs like us who are not attached to hospitals also, we do get a lot of referrals because we handhold the mother from pregnancy. So we prepare her antenatally only, Shweta,
Correct.
कि आप फर्स्ट आवर में आपको फीडिंग स्टार्ट कर देनी है. आपको एक थियोरी हम समझा देते हैं कि दिस इज हाउ यू होल्ड द बेबी,
Right.
दिस is how you express breast milk, this is how you feed a baby through a cup and not use bottles. So all of that education we try to do antenatally. Yeah.
So yeah, counseling is key, I guess, and also then breast milk banks are obviously an option before you switch to formula milk, because Pooja, you won't believe that I've had an overweight 8-month-old baby who was fed formula.
Right.
And the mother wasn't even aware that, the formula should not have fed. There was no discussion with the doctor. And it was such a mismatch and such a miscommunication that happened between the mother and the doctor that it led to an overweight baby. So
Absolutely. So this is like sowing the seed for obesity
Right.
and type 2 diabetes,
100%.
Shweta, when you start on formula milk. And let me also tell you that there are groups of, when lactation consultants really work in even communities, we are seeing babies who are exclusively breastfed
That's
but
right.
also reaching 8 kg at 6 months. But that's a very beautiful healthy weight gain,
Right.
Shweta. That's not something that puts them at
Should be
metabolic
alarmed.
risk. Yeah. But when it's formula milk, definitely it's something artificial.
100%. So that brings us to our last segment on complementary feeds. Where, when, what, how much, right? Because there's so much confusion around that topic as well. What to give your child after 6 months in the weaning phase, what to avoid before the first year. So, can you just tell us a little bit about your experience in this area?
Yeah, so firstly, the term complementary feeding, Shweta, right? As you rightly said, this is not weaning, this is complementary feeding. That means first realization is that you are complementing mother's milk,
Right. So
and
it's
you're not,
plus.
yeah, it's not displacing, right? Weaning initially was used as a term which meant displacing mother's milk, but now we understand it's about complementing
Right.
whatever the gaps are left now, because mother's milk is now not able to fulfill
Sufficient.
certain needs, and it's like because the stores have exhausted, right? For 6 months you have stores of iron and vitamin A, Shweta.
True.
Those are exhausted by now, so then your complementary foods will step in to fill up those gaps, right? So that is first thing. Now it's important to know when it should start. So it's like, there is a eligible age for marriage, there is an eligible age to start driving,
Right.
so then there is an eligible age for complementary feeding as well, because you are not physically or mentally ready to start accepting solids.
Right.
And that brings us to a physiological preparedness. That means that the
The
baby's
kidneys.
the kidney
Digestive
should
system.
to handle the load. The intestine has a lot of these cells,
Segments,
right?
yeah.
And the cells have gaps in between.
Right.
Okay, now for 6 months with exclusive breastfeeding, you are sort of layering those gaps and filling
Correct.
up all of those in the
Correct.
intestine.
So you're strengthening the barrier.
Absolutely, the barrier, right? So you are strengthening the barrier with 6 months of exclusive breastfeeding, and now when you start solids after completion of 180 days of life, whatever is taken, any microorganisms, any bacteria, this barrier is going to act as a
Protect.
filter, right? So preventing the baby from infection comes because of the right time of introduction.
True.
And a lot of parents, I think, go wrong in also the how of the breastfeeding, Shweta, I feel like you should understand that you're trying to build an equation with food. You're not just trying to make sure food goes inside the baby's body,
Right, right.
but it's about
Relationship
your
with food.
relationship, right? How are you eating? So how is the food presented to the baby? Is the baby allowed to touch and feel, explore, smell, or they will also throw the food because they want to hear the sound
Right,
of the food.
right.
Okay, so that exploration has to be done very
Patiently.
freely, yeah. And for the mother, that requires so much patience, because all she's attached to is like usne 4 chammach kha liya ki nahi, I have to make sure utna. No, but that's not the goal.
Right.
It's like, like for you and me, a beautiful meal experience is about calmness, right?
Right.
Some music, some beautiful cutlery,
Right.
some company who's talking
Right.
to me, right?
Right.
That is what you need to create for the child.
Right.
Every meal should be a positive experience, and that how of the complementary feeding makes so much difference, which we call also as responsive feeding. Means wait for the child to give you a cue.
Feedback.
Am I ready for the next bite? Am I so done, or am I enjoying this process? That is what
So yeah, I always emphasize and talk about the reward and punishment methods of
true.
feeding children, creating a very peaceful environment where the family members are not fighting, parents behaving as role models first of all, because that's what kids are looking at, whether the parents are accepting those foods that they want them to eat.
Absolutely.
So all this is so important. And what is your take on introducing salt and sugar and spices before the first year? Because I know for sure when I have children come into the clinic, and when I, for the pediatric nutrition bit, the first questions I ask, was your child exclusively breastfed for 6 months? The second question, was it a natural birth process, or was it a C-section? Was it normal birth weight, or was it overweight, underweight? So many things affect the child's behavioral patterns, right, in that age group.
And you may also want to ask
and the
when-
environment.
Yeah.
Yes.
Correct. So again, salt and sugar, these are acquired taste, right?
Right.
Shweta, if we think of it, all of us would be having a different threshold for sweetness. What
Right.
may appear sweet to you may be less sweet to me, maybe.
Right.
And similarly with salt, every family has a very different salt threshold, so called. So now for baby also, these are acquired taste. Now baby, honestly, who is on mother's milk doesn't know that khichdi without salt is not going to taste
Correct.
good, right? So they don't have that understanding, or they don't know that if my ragi porridge was made sweet with a banana, then only I'm going to accept it.
Right.
It's not okay. We have a little sort of affinity for sweetness because mother's milk is
Right.
sweet in taste, but then it's like you can open the world of flavors to a
Sure.
child, and they will beautifully accept
Explore.
even karela, spinach, and everything. I'm sure you must have also seen
No,
that.
this is extremely right, because I know that there is this one set of mothers who say my child eats everything, and then there's the other set of mothers who says it's so difficult to feed my child.
Yeah, so this whole, terming picky, and then,
Right.
my baby so picky, that actually is because you have, like you also mentioned, not been a right role model.
Right.
You have also given up too early. It takes 20 attempts with the same food.
Repeated exposure.
Yeah, to finally say that, नहीं मेरा बच्चा ही कभी नहीं खाने वाला.
Right.
Like बार बार पालक दो, उसको टेबल पे लाओ,
Right.
आप उसके सामने खाओ, and then you see how the child is accepting it. Okay, and it also then brings us to this minimum adequate diet, Shweta. Like, so complementary feeding is the worst statistics for us in India.
Is
Okay,
it?
so the NFHS 6 lately showed a little improvement from the last data, but you can say that out of 100, only 15 children get a adequate diet, right? Or
15%.
yeah, only, yeah. And that means that what are the rest of them eating?
Right.
Means 85 बच्चे, like 85 kids are still eating dal chawal, dal chawal, dal chawal. Like every meal is same, yeah? Or you are giving some very liquidy, thin kind of foods, right? Lot of
Because they've
mothers-
accepted that, you just keep feeding them that.
yeah, so you know the parents keep giving that dal ka pani, chawal ka pani, or juices, or lot of fruits. Honestly, you have to diversify. Okay, so this minimum adequate diet is about diversity. So whether minimum dietary diversity is achieved, whether minimum meal frequency is achieved. So dietary diversity is like there are about 8 food groups including breast milk. So out of that, at least 5 food groups should be there in every meal. Imagine every plate having 5 food groups. So whether it's eggs, which is a food group, flesh foods is a food group, milk products is a food
Right.
group, vegetables, your pulses, your nuts and seeds, these are different food groups. So every meal should have those 5 food groups,
Right.
and that's when the meal is balanced, right? And the child is going to eat maybe 2 tablespoons, 3 tablespoons, or half a cup, but you need to make every bite count.
That's
and
true.
that will happen when there's a diversity in the meal. Yeah.
So, great points, Pooja. That brings us to actually my last question to you about growth monitoring, right? Because why are we talking about food? It's directly proportional to how the child is going to grow. So, what happens to the pediatrician visits after age 2? Because I know that a lot of mothers take their kids to the doctors after age 2 only when they're sick.
Yeah.
So, who's monitoring whether they are within their growth channels or growing out? Because that also brings us to a very, very important concept of childhood obesity.
Obesity,
Now, while you were speaking of NFHS 6, the data shows a 60% surge in childhood obesity in kids under 5 years of age.
Absolutely.
So I'm sure between 0 to 5 years, the parents are in charge of the child's diet, right? The child just can't go and pick up something from the store and eat.
True.
So why are kids becoming obese in India? And there was a 60% surge from 4 to 5. Now those numbers have improved in NHFS 6, but it's so alarming.
Yeah.
And, I feel that the one thing that can help here is obviously education about the child's complementary feeding and nutrition and practices, but also growth monitoring.
Monitoring.
So what do you have to say about that?
Absolutely. So, Shweta, unfortunately, sometimes we get mothers when we ask them that, do you know your child's birth length? They are not even aware of that. Okay. So, see, so many times, if you think of it in a different perspective, that if you're trying to launch a product, you will be very sure of the features of the product, right?
Right.
Like every mobile is launched with a certain dimension, right? I'm looking at this dimension, these particular features of my phone. Now, why aren't you aware what should be your child's birth length or
Right.
birth weight. So you should know ideal. So in pregnancy, what we make mothers do is make a vision board.
Okay.
And in that vision board, you have to write exactly मेरे बच्चे का वजन जन्म पे इतना होना चाहिए, length इतना होना चाहिए, my baby should come at this time. You know, you should know exact time of it, because you don't launch a product before it's ready, right? So similarly, you can't let the baby come out till it has completed its
True.
growth. So same way, mothers have to, you know, tell or demand from the pediatrician that look, you have to give me my child's length and weight every time I'm coming to your clinic, and do that as a very regular exercise, I would say monthly in the first 6 months.
Okay.
And then every quarterly for 6 to 12 months, and then 1 to 2 years के बीच में at least to do it every 3 months, because the first 2 years are so critical, right? We mentioned that the height is almost half of the adult height.
True.
And the weight, you have the maximum potential for linear weight growth in this first 2 years, and that is going to be a healthy weight gain.
But I think the visit should continue beyond 2 years, because we know about this adiposity rebound in children, which occurs between 5 to 8 years of age.
Right.
So if you don't monitor, then you're again setting up a overweight child for puberty, which is again another a dark spot or a vulnerable spot for the child's growth. So I
Absolutely.
feel like this just keeps on tumbling into the next phase and the next phase if you don't keep monitoring and holding back.
Absolutely. So, like, people go only for vaccinations, as
Right.
you mentioned, like
Right.
eventually only vaccinations, or if the child has fallen sick,
Right.
but you're not tracking the metrics. In fact, we also share with our mothers these growth trackers, which
Okay.
you can use on your phone, so we can share the links with your audiences in the comments, because the child growth tracker app allows you to keep feeding your
Nice.
child's height, weight, as
Right.
well as head circumference,
Right.
and then it helps you understand where your child stands in with regards to the WHO growth charts.
Right.
And that then gives the power to the mother, don't compare your child with your neighbor's child, कि उसका बच्चा इतना मोटा इतना पतला है, ऐसा नहीं है. To have confidence in your own
That
child's
he's
growth,
within his channel.
yeah, you look at your child's
Right.
growth in a growth tracker app, and that's it. Then don't be intimidated by what the others think about your child's nutrition.
Right. So I think in terms of monitoring, we can just conclude saying that after 2 years of age, the mother and the pediatrician, or the parent and the pediatrician, have to just be in touch with each other on a case-on-case basis and decide that this is going to be the frequency of your visits if you really want to keep your child's health in check on a regular basis.
Correct. Because growth chart is like a kundli,
Right.
It also gives very small nuances of any thyroid disorder
Right.
setting in, and any metabolic
Which
disease
we
setting
see very frequently. In fact, now I have a 12-year-old child who's almost on metformin and,
Yeah.
on a weight loss drug. So
Absolutely.
we
So
are
then-
seeing fatty liver grade 1, grade 2 in young children. We are seeing childhood obesity surge, and it's going to the level of taking medications to control it. So I think that these visits are extremely important to catch these things well on time.
well on time. Yes.
Fantastic. So thank you so much, Pooja. Honestly, this platform I've been using to have consultants, and so far I've had only doctors come on board, but this is my first interaction with another dietitian. So I'm really very happy to have had this conversation with you, because I think it was such a learning experience for me, and I'm sure it was also for the audience. And I'm looking forward to having more such interactions with you in the future, because, there's so much more left to discuss, which is maybe out of scope, of our discussion today.
Absolutely. Thank you so much. And I am sure that the audience will take a lot of insights from this conversation, and we'd be happy to take this further to, address
Yes.
some more doubts that they may have.
If you found this conversation valuable, don't forget to like this video, subscribe to the channel, and turn on notifications so you never miss an episode. Share this with someone who could benefit from it, and I'll see you in the next conversation.